What if the janitor you mocked was secretly your boss? She tore into him in front of the entire showroom. Called him a disgrace. Said he made the luxury dealership look like a truck stop. Everyone laughed. Everyone looked away. No one dared to defend the man in the blue maintenance shirt. But what she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the man with the mop was actually the new owner of the entire company. And he wasn't just cleaning floors. He was watching. Listening. Documenting every cruel word, every fake smile, every abuse of power. And when the truth came out, she didn't just lose her job. She lost the respect of an entire company. This is the jaw-dropping true story of how power disguised itself as a janitor and flipped a toxic workplace upside down. Hit that like button if you believe respect goes beyond appearances. Comment below, what would you have done in the janitor's place? Subscribe to our channel for more real-life stories that twist when you least expect them. This is The Janitor Owner Twist, and it starts right now. The sun had barely begun to rise over the sleepy skyline of Nashville, Tennessee, as a dusty blue Ford F-150 rolled to a quiet stop across the street from Brighton Auto Plaza. The lot was still mostly empty at that hour, just a few early birds, the kind of employees who like to make an impression by showing up before the official shift started. Inside the pickup, a man sat silently in the driver's seat. He didn't move. He just stared through the windshield at the modern, glass-fronted dealership, its reflective surface catching the early flickers of dawn. The man's name was Sam Waverly. To the outside world, he looked like nothing more than a maintenance worker, khaki work pants, black non-slip shoes, and a buttoned-up blue janitorial shirt with a name tag sewn over the chest. It read simply, Sam. But Sam was not just another janitor hired to mop the floors and empty the trash bins. Not today. He took a slow breath, grabbed the mop bucket and an old gym duffel from the passenger seat, and stepped out of the truck. The metal door gave a soft creak as he shut it behind him. Fluorescent lights inside the dealership were already flickering to life, even though it wasn't yet 7 a.m. A delivery truck sat near the side of the lot, still idling, waiting for someone to sign off on a fresh shipment of SUVs. Sam walked through the side entrance reserved for employees and nodded at two workers in polo shirts who passed by with coffee in hand. They responded with polite indifference, the kind of distant acknowledgement people reserve for janitors or security guards. Not hostile, not friendly. Just invisible. That's exactly how Sam wanted it. 3 weeks earlier, he had finalized the full acquisition of Brighton Auto Plaza through an LLC under his real estate and franchising corporation, Waverly Holdings. After nearly 30 years in automotive sales, corporate strategy, and commercial property management, Sam had decided it was time to return to his roots. Brighton was the first dealership where he'd ever sold a car. He started here as a 21-year-old, walking the lots, memorizing engine specs, and hustling weekend test drives. But this time, he wasn't coming back as a salesman. He was coming back as the owner. But instead of marching in with a suit and a speech, Sam had made a different choice. He wanted to see the place unfiltered, without the layers of forced politeness or power plays that happen when people know they're being watched. He didn't want introductions or boardroom tours. What he wanted was authenticity. So he disguised himself as the building's new janitor. His plan was simple: clean floors, take out trash, observe the culture. He wasn't looking for stats or spreadsheets. He was looking for character. Inside, the dealership was already buzzing. Phones were being booted up. Sales staff were unlocking display cabinets. The front desk crew were scanning the digital calendar, prepping for customer appointments. Despite the early hour, the air carried that unmistakable rhythm of a place built around quotas and performance. Sam wheeled his mop bucket across the showroom, careful not to make too much noise. He didn't speak unless spoken to. A few workers gave him a quick glance before turning away again. Just another service worker doing his job, nothing worth noticing. At exactly 8:15 a.m., the energy in the building shifted. She arrived. Mallory Hayes, the general manager, walked through the glass doors in sharp red heels, tailored black slacks, and a white blouse so tightly tucked it looked vacuum-sealed. Her entrance had a gravitational pull. A few younger sales reps straightened their posture and nodded quickly. "Good morning, Ms. Hayes," one called out, a little too eagerly. Mallory didn't stop walking. She gave a shallow nod, barely a glance backward. "Let's have a strong day, people," she said curtly, her voice slicing through the air like a blade. Sam had just begun mopping near the far corner of the showroom when she noticed him for the first time. Her heels stopped a few feet from him, their clicking silenced abruptly by the glossed tile. She turned slowly, letting her eyes scan him from the toes of his shoes up to the stitched name on his shirt. She looked at him the way someone might look at a stain on white carpet. "Who approved maintenance to be in the showroom during open hours?" she asked sharply, projecting her voice just enough for nearby staff and even a couple of early customers to hear. There was a beat of silence. Sam didn't look up. "Just trying to get the floor cleaned before traffic picks up," he replied calmly, keeping his mop moving. "Try harder," Mallory snapped. "You're dragging dirt across our high-gloss tile. That mop water looks like coffee. Are you even using a fresh bucket?" Sam paused. Then slowly, he looked up, not defensively, just steady. "Yes, ma'am. Fresh water. Fresh mop head." Mallory gave a short, sarcastic laugh. "This isn't a gas station restroom," she said. "Keep it moving out of sight." He nodded once, wordlessly, and moved toward the service hallway, his bucket sloshing softly as he turned the corner. She muttered under her breath as she walked off, "Standards really are slipping." None of the staff said a word. A few shifted uncomfortably. One of the junior sales associates, a kid named Tyler, looked like he might speak up. But he didn't. Not yet. No one wanted to risk their job for the janitor. Sam didn't expect them to. He wasn't angry. He didn't take it personally. He had seen this kind of leadership before, loud, performative, and always looking for someone to dominate. This wasn't about mop water or tiles. It was about power. Mallory had found a convenient target, and she used it to reinforce her authority in front of others. But what she didn't know, what no one knew, was that the man she had just humiliated had enough power to flip the entire operation on its head. And he would. But not yet. By the time the clock edged past 11:45 a.m., Brighton Auto Plaza was hitting its late morning stride. The once quiet hum of pre-opening prep had shifted into the sharp, rhythmic pace of a dealership in full swing. Salespeople chatted with walk-in customers near the SUVs, digital screens glowed with financing rates, and somewhere from the ceiling speakers, upbeat pop music played just loud enough to fill the empty space between conversations. Sam Waverly had positioned himself in a quiet corner of the showroom, near a rotating platform that displayed Brighton's newest electric crossover. He kept his head low, cloth in hand, wiping down a display stand with a slow, deliberate rhythm. To anyone else, it looked like he was just killing time between mop passes. But he wasn't. He was watching. Listening. Observing body language, tone of voice, who flinched when Mallory Hayes walked by, and who avoided making eye contact altogether. Almost all of them did. Especially the younger team members. The staff moved around Mallory like people skirt around a wasp. They didn't want to be stung, so they stayed silent and out of the way. Then came the moment. A small boy no more than 5 let out a quiet yelp as his plastic juice cup slipped from his hands and hit the floor near the front door. A puddle of orange liquid began to spread across the tile in a slow, sticky mess. The mother gasped, crouched to assess the damage, and glanced around in panic, clearly mortified. Before she could even think about paper towels, Sam was already moving. He approached without a word, a folded towel in one hand, and crouched on one knee to begin sopping up the spill. No theatrics. No scolding. Just action. The boy's father, a thin man in a green golf polo, looked at Sam with genuine appreciation. "Thanks, man. Really appreciate that, he said with a soft smile. Sam returned a small nod. No problem. It should have ended there. But it didn't. Mallory was just exiting the break room with a coffee she wouldn't finish, heading toward her self-designated throne, the central post near reception, when she saw the scene unfolding. And that was all she needed. Her heels clicked rapidly across the tile. "Oh no," she announced loudly, her voice cutting across the gentle noise of the showroom like a razor through silk. "You've got to be kidding me." The room didn't fall silent, not entirely. But it shifted. Heads turned. Conversation stalled mid-word. Two sales associates near the front desk glanced at each other, eyes wide. Even the receptionist paused mid-type. Mallory walked straight toward Sam and pointed an accusatory finger like she was identifying a suspect in a lineup. "You're wiping the showroom floor in front of customers. On your knees?" she exclaimed. "What is this? A daycare center?" She turned her attention to the family. "I apologize for this. Truly. It won't happen again." The mother raised a hand, startled. "No, wait," he was helping. But Mallory cut her off with a flick of her wrist. "Do you think this is the image we want? New buyers walking in and seeing someone crawling around like we're a budget truck stop?" She looked back down at Sam, her eyes full of contempt. "You are making us look cheap." Sam stood up slowly, the towel still damp in his hand. He didn't flinch. He didn't defend himself. He just looked at her, calm, unreadable, but not meek. Mallory's brow furrowed. "Do you even understand how much these vehicles cost? How hard we work to create a luxury buying experience? And you're out here like it's amateur hour." Behind them, Tyler, the junior sales associate, took a half step forward. His expression was conflicted. "Ms. Hayes, maybe it's not." "Not your turn, Tyler," she snapped, eyes never leaving Sam's face. Her voice grew sharper, colder. "I have no idea who authorized you, but I'm talking to Marcus in facilities. You shouldn't even be on this floor." There was a pause. Sam, steady as ever, looked her in the eye. "You done?" The words weren't loud, but they landed like a gavel. Mallory blinked, caught off guard by the even tone. "I'm here to work," Sam continued, voice low and steady. "That's what I've been doing. Cleaning up messes. Keeping the floor safe. That's all I've done." She opened her mouth to snap back but froze. Something in his eyes unnerved her, not fear, not disrespect, just presence. Something deeper. After a breath, she gathered herself and turned away. "Then keep the floor clean," she muttered over her shoulder. "In the service bay. Not out here where people actually spend money." She disappeared toward the office corridor, her heels echoing against the tile. As she vanished from sight, a nervous energy lingered in the air like smoke after a firework. At the reception desk, Lauren, barely 24 and visibly uncomfortable, tried to offer Sam a small, apologetic smile as he passed. He didn't return it. He went back to his supply cart. Back to work. One towel at a time. But now, the room felt different. People whispered not just about the scene, but about him. The way he stood up. The way he didn't argue. The way he said nothing, but somehow said everything. In the finance office, the boy's father leaned over to his wife and whispered, "That guy doesn't look like a janitor." She nodded. "And she looks like trouble." But Mallory didn't care who had seen it. She believed she'd reinforced the hierarchy. She'd made her point visibly and loudly. What she didn't know was so had Sam. And his was the kind of point you didn't see coming, until it was too late. The break room at Brighton Auto Plaza wasn't much to look at. Fluorescent lights flickered above two scratched-up round tables. A tired fridge hummed in the corner next to a microwave that always smelled faintly of burnt popcorn. A cheap, plastic Keurig machine sat on the countertop wheezing with every brew attempt, more decorative than functional. But it was the one place employees could breathe, even if just for 10 minutes. At 1:45 p.m., 3 employees sat inside, halfway through lukewarm sandwiches and halfway checked out of their shift minds. Lauren, the front desk receptionist, sat beside Tyler, the young sales associate who'd nearly spoken up earlier. Across from them sat Renee, a no-nonsense finance assistant who had been with the dealership for just under a year. She was the kind of person who always had gum in her purse and the kind of eyes that never missed anything. "You saw that, right?" Lauren asked, her voice low, cautious, but curious. Tyler nodded. "Hard to miss." Renee peeled back the foil on her turkey wrap with a scoff. She didn't need to go off like that. Dude was just helping clean up a spill. "Twice now," Lauren added, glancing toward the door. She embarrassed him twice. In front of customers. Tyler exhaled through his nose. She's always been like that. But still, it was just juice. Renee leaned back in her chair, eyes narrowing as she studied both of them. "Y'all don't think something's weird about him?" They blinked at her. "Weird how?" Tyler asked. Renee shrugged. "I don't know. He doesn't act like a regular janitor. Most new guys fumble around. Look confused. Talk too much or too little. But he doesn't flinch. He doesn't apologize. Even the way he stood up to her, it was calm. Controlled. Like he's been through worse." Lauren hesitated. "You think he's corporate?" Renee raised her brows and took a bite of her sandwich. "Wouldn't be the first time. My cousin works at a resort in Naples. They had a new owner come in last year, pretended to be valet. Said he wanted to see how the staff acted when no one was watching." Tyler shook his head. "Yeah, but this is Nashville. This is a car dealership. That kind of stuff doesn't happen here." Renee pointed at him with her sandwich. "This place changed hands 3 weeks ago. You remember that?" Mallory didn't say much, just something about a holding company. Lauren nodded slowly. "She's been snappier than usual since then. I heard her yelling in her office about the new buyer keeping things under wraps." Tyler leaned back in his chair. "You're saying, what? You think the janitor is the new owner?" "I'm saying something doesn't add up," Renee replied. "He moves like someone used to being in charge. And he listens more than he talks. That's not cleaning behavior. That's recon." Lauren glanced at the break room door. "If it's true, then she's screwed." Tyler chuckled nervously. He did just stare her down. Didn't raise his voice. Didn't argue. Just looked her in the eye. That kind of quiet. That's not fear. That's strategy. Renee grinned. And she didn't like that. Not one bit. Just outside the break room, Sam Waverly stood silently in the hallway, refilling a spray bottle at the utility sink. The faucet gurgled as water poured in, but he wasn't focused on that. The break room door had been left slightly ajar, and he could hear most of the conversation inside. Not every word, but enough. Enough to know the whispers had started. The smart ones were beginning to connect the dots. And that wasn't a bad thing. He looked at his reflection in the scratched mirror above the sink. There were streaks across the glass, a crack in the corner from where someone had probably slammed a bottle against it years ago. But his face was still calm. Focused. He gave himself a small, almost imperceptible nod. Out in the showroom, Mallory Hayes had returned to her usual command post near the reception desk, cell phone in one hand, coffee in the other. Her voice was louder than necessary. It always was. "No, I'm not overreacting," she barked into the phone, eyes darting toward the lobby. He was kneeling on the floor like a janitor from a roadside motel. In the middle of the showroom. A pause. "I don't care if facilities says he's new. He's not trained for customer spaces. Another pause. Her free hand tapped rhythmically against the desk. Yes, I'll talk to HR if I have to. But he doesn't belong up here. And with that, she slammed the receiver back onto the desk phone with a force that made the receptionist flinch. Back in the break room, the energy had shifted again. The trio had moved on to safer topics: weekend plans, bad Tinder dates, local takeout joints. But the seed had been planted. The air was charged with something unspoken. Even if no one said it out loud, everyone knew something had shifted. Mallory still believed she was in control, that she was holding the reins. But in truth, the grip was already slipping. Every jab, every insult, every micromanaged moment she thought had cemented her power had actually been catalogued, noted, and weighed. Not by Sam. By the entire staff. And Sam? He had all the data he needed. By the end of only his second day, he had begun to see the dealership for what it truly was, a sleek, shiny facade masking a culture ruled by intimidation and silence. A place where fear had been dressed up as leadership. Where people did their jobs not because they were empowered but because they were scared not to. And the worst part? No one had pushed back. Not until now. By mid-afternoon, the glass windows of Brighton Auto Plaza gleamed under the Tennessee sun like polished silver. The cars on display sparkled beneath rows of LED lights. From the outside, everything looked flawless. But behind the gleam, Sam Waverly had seen enough to know the truth. The dealership didn't run on trust, it ran on silence. From the moment he walked in that morning to now, Sam had been a quiet shadow moving through the building. He wasn't looking at inventory spreadsheets or sales performance graphs. He was watching people, how they moved, how they avoided eye contact, how their energy shifted when Mallory Hayes stepped into a room. It wasn't just one person creating tension. It was the effect of that person on everyone else. He'd watched her snap at the receptionist for laughing too loudly. Had seen her reprimand a porter for brushing dust off a showroom car with the wrong cloth. He'd stood near the hallway when a technician from service tried to explain a warranty issue only for Mallory to interrupt mid-sentence and walk away without acknowledging a word. No one ever pushed back. Not a single question. Not a single defense. People moved around her like she was radioactive. And maybe she was. Even Dean Rollins, the assistant general manager, a man with over a decade of experience and a calm demeanor, kept his head down. Sam noticed how Dean would quietly fix things behind the scenes, smoothing out problems Mallory caused, correcting her oversights, and never taking credit. Sam found Dean wiping down the edge of a window near the back hallway during a slow hour. The glass had a faint fingerprint smudge, nothing major, but Dean was always the type to handle it himself. "You been here long?" Sam asked casually as he cleaned the frame beside him. Dean didn't look up. "Almost 7 years. Seems like you run a tight ship," Sam said. Dean gave a faint chuckle, still focusing on the smudge. "Not my ship." Sam tilted his head, watching him. "Still, people come to you when they need things handled." Dean finally glanced at him. "You're not a regular janitor, are you?" Sam smiled. "Why do you say that?" Dean hesitated for a moment. "No offense. You just carry yourself different. Like someone who doesn't have to be here." Sam folded his cloth neatly over the rim of his bucket. "Maybe I'm just someone who wants to see what goes on when folks think no one's watching." Dean nodded slowly. A flicker of something crossed his expression: recognition, maybe. Or relief. Meanwhile, in the service bay, the techs were still working hard, sweating under lifted hoods, wiping grease from their forearms with rags older than their uniforms. The bay was noisy, hot, and invisible to the rest of the showroom, like a separate world entirely. "You think she even knows our names?" one mechanic mumbled to another as they pulled a diagnostic tool off a charger. "Only if we mess something up," the other replied. None of them had been invited to the team building retreat Mallory kept bragging about. That was reserved for the showroom crew, the ones she paraded around for performance metrics and sales reviews. As Sam walked through, he nodded at the techs. Some nodded back, others just looked tired. He didn't interrupt them. He just watched. Later, around 3:30 p.m., Sam passed by one of the dealership's glass-walled conference rooms. Inside, Mallory stood before a whiteboard, marker in hand, delivering what could only be described as a performance. Her blouse was pristine, her words even sharper than her heels. "You're not just selling cars," she said, circling a number on the board with a flourish. "You're selling us. And every interaction is either a reason to trust us or a reason to walk away." The sales team sat in stiff chairs, some with tablets, some pretending to take notes. Sam lingered near the door, partially out of sight. Mallory scanned the room with surgical precision, hunting for weak links. "Perception is everything," she continued. "If we're not holding every department to that standard, then we're losing." She didn't say Sam's name. She didn't have to. The implication was crystal clear. The janitor wasn't up to standard. The silent threat, "Step out of line, and you'll be shamed like him." Tyler, sitting near the middle, shifted uncomfortably in his chair. He didn't look up. The room didn't feel inspired. It felt controlled. Sam leaned back against the hallway wall and pulled out a small notebook from his back pocket. He didn't jot down numbers or schedules. Just 4 words. They work through fear. He closed the notebook with a quiet snap. As the sun began to lower, casting golden beams through the dealership windows, Sam pushed his cart down the hallway toward the back exit. The day was winding down. The trash bins had been emptied. The floors sparkled. The air smelled faintly of lemon-scented disinfectant. He passed Mallory again as she stormed through the corridor, still on the phone with someone from corporate. "Let's try not to embarrass us tomorrow," she said without even glancing at him. Sam didn't respond. He kept walking. Head high. Eyes forward. But Mallory? She wasn't watching the right things. She never had. And what she failed to notice was exactly what Sam had come for. She thought she was managing a brand. But Sam had been watching how she managed people. And that difference was about to define the rest of her career. 3 days passed. 3 long, quietly revealing days. And while Mallory Hayes strutted through Brighton Auto Plaza with her usual tightly buttoned confidence, Sam Waverly was preparing for something she couldn't see coming. Sales had spiked that week, thanks to a new SUV promotion, and Mallory was in rare form, smiling at the front desk, complimenting a sales rep's tie, even pausing to say, "Great energy today, team," like a motivational speaker on a coffee high. The team breathed a little easier in her softened wake. Lauren smiled again. Tyler even cracked a joke in the break room. But beneath that temporary calm was something else: anticipation. Because at exactly 10 a.m., a sleek black town car pulled into the dealership's customer lot. Mallory saw it through the floor-to-ceiling windows of her office and immediately stood. She smoothed the front of her blazer, dabbed her lipstick with practiced precision, and walked briskly to the showroom entrance. To her, this moment was everything. Word from corporate was that an executive observer might be visiting, someone sent by the parent holding company to assess operations. She assumed it was a chance to finally get recognition. Maybe even a promotion. As the driver stepped out of the town car and opened the rear passenger door, Mallory's posture straightened. Her heels clicked on the tile like war drums. A middle-aged man stepped out first. Gray tailored suit. Gold watch glinting in the sun. Polished shoes. Professional but not ostentatious. She smiled. That must be him. Then the second door opened. Out stepped Sam Waverly. No mop bucket. No janitor uniform. Just a crisp navy suit, a pressed white shirt, and calm, unwavering eyes. Mallory froze. Her brain scrambled for logic. Maybe he's just dropping something off, maybe he's somebody's guest, maybe. Then the man in the gray suit turned to face the group of gathered employees and spoke in a firm, even tone that carried across the entire showroom. "Good morning, everyone. I'd like to introduce Mr. Samuel Waverley, majority owner of Waverley Holdings and effective immediately, the new principal owner of Brighton Auto Plaza." You could have heard a pin drop. Someone at the front desk dropped a pen. Tyler's coffee nearly slipped from his hand. Mallory blinked. "Excuse me." Sam stepped forward slowly, hands clasped in front of him. Calm. Measured. "You heard him," he said quietly. Mallory's jaw tightened. "You're, what?" Sam tilted his head slightly. "The janitor." "Yeah. That was me. Just for a few days. Wanted to see how things were running. Without the filter." She looked around, disoriented. Staff had begun peeking from behind desks and cubicles. Lauren leaned half out of reception. Dean, the assistant GM, stood silently in the hallway, arms folded, his face unreadable. Mallory's voice rose slightly, laced with disbelief. "That's absurd. You can't just pretend to be someone else." "Actually, I can," Sam said. "And I did. Purchase was finalized 3 weeks ago. Through an LLC. Quiet and clean. I've done it before." Her voice turned sharp. "But why?" Sam took a breath. "To see who I'm trusting my business with. And more importantly, how the people under you are being treated." Mallory crossed her arms, searching for footing. "You can't judge everything based on a few days. That's not even close to the full picture." Sam's smile faded. "You judged me in 30 seconds. The silence that followed was louder than any outburst. He stepped forward again, this time addressing the entire showroom. "You humiliated me. Twice. Not because I did something wrong. But because I didn't look like someone who belonged here. And if that's how you treat someone you think can't fight back," he paused, letting the weight of the moment settle. "Then I have to wonder how you treat my team when no one is watching." Mallory's face flushed, but she didn't speak. Sam turned to the crowd. "I'm calling a staff meeting in the next hour. Everyone's service, detail, finance, front desk. Full attendance." Mallory's voice, now low, almost hesitant, "Am I included in that?" Sam looked at her evenly. "You'll be addressed then." And just like that, he walked away. Toward the conference room. The staff stood still for a long beat, exchanging glances like the ground beneath them had shifted, and in a way, it had. The silent hierarchy that had ruled the building cracked in real time. And Mallory? She was the only one still pretending it hadn't. But this was just the beginning. The reckoning was still coming. And no amount of spreadsheets or lipstick was going to talk her way out of what came next. 45 minutes after the reveal, the entire staff of Brighton Auto Plaza found themselves gathered in the main conference room. It was packed. Technicians still in grease-stained coveralls stood next to sharply dressed finance associates. Sales reps leaned against the back wall, arms crossed or nervously tapping their pens. A few clutched coffees they hadn't had time to finish. Receptionists sat near the door, exchanging anxious glances. No one knew exactly what was coming, only that it was big. And no one was talking. Not even Mallory Hayes, who now stood off to the side near the back corner, arms tightly folded, lips pressed into a hard line. Her perfectly slick hair couldn't hide the slight twitch in her jaw. Then Sam Waverley entered. No PowerPoint. No notes. No laptop. Just presence. He stood at the front of the room, his hands clasped, eyes scanning slowly across the group. One by one, he made eye contact intentionally until the air itself felt charged. "First off," he said, his voice calm but resonant, "thank you all for being here. I know this wasn't part of your schedule." A few heads nodded. No one spoke. My name is Samuel Waverley. Some of you may know that name. Most probably don't. And that's okay. What matters is this: effective immediately, I am the new owner of Brighton Auto Plaza. A soft ripple moved through the crowd, shifting feet, eyes darting. Mallory remained stone still. I didn't come here to make a scene, Sam continued. I didn't come to clean house or wave a banner. I came to listen. He paused. Let that word settle. And I did. People shifted again. Tyler glanced sideways at Lauren. Dean looked straight ahead. I spent the last few days here, Sam said, doing the quiet work, mopping floors, taking out trash, wiping down display stands. But mostly, I listened. I listened to how people speak when they think no one important is around. I watched how problems get solved, or avoided. I watched who carries weight, and who carries fear. His gaze flicked briefly to Mallory, then back to the group. What I saw, he said, was not a team that's broken. It's a team that's afraid. Silence. Dead, frozen silence. I saw people walking on eggshells, not because of high standards, but because of high-pressure personalities. I saw employees humiliated publicly. Shut down mid-sentence. Avoiding eye contact just to stay out of the blast zone. Mallory's arms were still folded. But her fingers twitched. I get it, Sam said. You've got families. You've got bills. You need this job. So you keep your head down, stay quiet, and survive. He took a step closer. But you shouldn't have to survive your workplace. A deep breath escaped someone in the back. It wasn't loud, but it was real. I'm not here to play hero, Sam said. But I am here to make changes. Because what I've seen doesn't reflect what I stand for. Then, his eyes locked on Mallory. Ms. Hayes, he said, how long have you been running this dealership? 5 years, she replied, voice steady but cold. You've brought in profit, Sam acknowledged. That's not in question. I've seen the numbers. But profit without people? That means nothing to me. A long pause. And if your idea of leadership depends on fear, shame, and dominance, then yes, we have a serious problem. A visible ripple moved through the room. Not shock release. Mallory opened her mouth. I've done what I thought was best. I'm not here to debate, Sam said, gently but firmly. I'm here to inform. Your approach doesn't belong here anymore. The room seemed to lean in. I'll be reviewing all leadership positions over the next 2 weeks. That includes yours. Mallory didn't speak again. Her mouth pressed tighter. Sam turned back to the group. This place is about to change, he said. Not with slogans or banners. But with real communication. Transparency. And respect. His tone didn't rise. It didn't need to. If you have concerns, ideas, issues, I want to hear them. Not through a manager. Directly. I'll be meeting with each department personally. A tech near the back folded his arms. Not in resistance but in hope. This isn't about revenge, Sam added. It's about respect. And that goes both ways. He gave a small nod. Meeting's over. No one rushed to leave. There was no scramble. No nervous shuffling. They just moved. Quietly. Thoughtfully. But something had shifted. You could feel it in their posture. Shoulders relaxed. Eyes lifted. Even a couple faint smiles cracked through the usual caution. Mallory didn't move. She stood still as the room emptied alone in her corner, staring at nothing. Sam didn't look back. He didn't need to. Because she knew. This wasn't just about a job. This was about finally being seen. And from that moment on, she couldn't hide behind her title anymore. The next morning, Brighton Auto Plaza felt different. Not quieter in terms of sales. Customers still filtered in and out of the lot, test drives still rolled through the streets of Nashville, and financing applications continued to buzz through printers. But something deeper had shifted. There was a heaviness in the air. It wasn't dread. It was clarity. People walked into work a little more cautiously, like stepping into a room after a storm. They didn't know what the new normal would look like, but they all knew the old one had collapsed. Even Mallory Hayes, who usually marched across the floor like she owned it, moved more slowly now. Her walk was tighter. Lips thinner. She still wore her signature heels, still carried her black leather bag, but she didn't meet anyone's eyes. And upstairs, in the second-floor office suite that had sat untouched for months, Sam Waverly was already at his desk. No mop bucket. No uniform. Just a man, now fully visible in his role, settling into the seat that was always meant to be his. On the frosted glass door outside the office was a new plaque. S. Waverly, Managing Partner. At exactly 10 a.m., Sam asked the receptionist to send Mallory up. She arrived 3 minutes later. Arms folded. Mouth drawn in a neutral line. The elevator dinged behind her as she stepped into the hallway. She knocked once before entering, her eyes scanning the new space. She didn't sit until Sam motioned to the chair opposite his desk. "This isn't a courtroom," he said gently. "You can breathe." Mallory let out a small, dry laugh. "I suppose you want my resignation." Sam leaned back. "No," he said plainly. "I want the truth." That stopped her. She blinked. "The truth?" "Yes. I want to understand how this place became what I saw. How someone like you, clearly capable, convinced yourself that fear was the path to excellence." Mallory sat back slowly in the chair, arms loosening ever so slightly. Her eyes darted to the window, then back to him. When she finally spoke, her voice was low. Measured. "When I first got here, this place was chaos. Sales were flat. People came in late. Everyone was too casual. Too comfortable. It was unprofessional." She paused. "I brought in structure. Control. Accountability. And it worked. We became the top-performing branch in the region within 2 years." Sam nodded. "That's what the numbers say." Mallory tilted her chin, hopeful, defensive. "Exactly. But at what cost?" he asked softly. Silence. Sam leaned forward. "You humiliated your staff. You ruled through intimidation. You turned leadership into performance art. You confused discipline with dominance, and that made people afraid to speak." Mallory's eyes narrowed. She didn't interrupt. "That's not leadership," Sam continued. "That's insecurity, dressed up in authority." "I was trying to keep things tight," she said quietly. "Keep people focused." "No," Sam replied. "You kept them silent." Her throat tensed. A muscle in her cheek twitched. "They still performed," she said, almost defiantly. "They hit goals." "Yes," Sam agreed. "But not because of you. In spite of you." That line hit like a bell. Mallory looked down at the desk for the first time. "You're smart," Sam said. "You're organized. And you know how to run numbers. But what you lack is emotional discipline. And that matters more than you realize." She was quiet for a long time. Finally, she asked, "So, what happens now?" Sam took a breath. "You're being placed on leave. Effective immediately. Paid, for now. HR will schedule your exit review. You're eligible to apply for another role, in 6 months. Somewhere else." Mallory didn't argue. She didn't beg. She just stared at him, eyes hollow. Not angry. Not shocked. Just, emptied. Sam stood and extended his hand. Thank you for what you built. But that version of leadership ends here. After a long pause, she took it. A brief, dry handshake. And then she left. As she walked down the hallway, the glass door clicked shut behind her. Dean Rollins, the long-suffering assistant GM, stood waiting outside the office, holding a folder. He watched Mallory walk past. Not with malice. Not with pity. Just, acceptance. She didn't look back. Sam nodded toward the seat. Have a seat, Dean. Dean sat cautiously. I've watched how you operate this week, Sam said. You solve problems quietly. You clean up after others. You keep this place running behind the curtain. Dean looked surprised, almost skeptical. I just try not to cause friction. You do more than that, Sam said. You show quiet leadership. And I respect that. There was a pause. Dean finally spoke. You're not like the others, are you? Sam shook his head. That's the point. They talked for 20 minutes. By the end of it, Dean was offered interim general manager status, pending a review period. He accepted. And when he left the office, word spread fast. Downstairs, people began to whisper. Not about Mallory being gone, but about Dean being promoted. No one celebrated out loud. Brighton wasn't that kind of place, yet. But something else happened. People exhaled. For the first time in years, someone breathed without looking over their shoulder. In the service bay, two techs bumped fists quietly. In finance, someone cracked a smile. And in the showroom, Tyler turned to Lauren and whispered, "Told you he wasn't just a janitor." Lauren smirked, almost afraid to believe it. But Renee, the finance assistant, said it best. This might actually turn out okay. Sam didn't smile yet. He wasn't here to make people comfortable. Not yet. First came cleanup. Then came trust. And that would take more than a new name on the door. On the surface, Brighton Auto Plaza didn't look any different. The logo out front remained unchanged. The lineup of polished sedans and SUVs still stretched in neat rows across the lot. The chrome still gleamed. The digital banners still scrolled leasing deals and APR specials in LED lights. But inside, the air had changed. It wasn't dramatic, not a lightning bolt or fireworks kind of transformation. There were no slogans plastered across walls, no mandatory team-building exercises. It was quieter than that. Smaller. But real. 2 weeks had passed since Sam Waverly took over publicly. Since the mop bucket became a memory. Since Mallory Hayes walked out of the second-floor office for the last time. And since Dean Rollins stepped up not just in title, but in tone. The first noticeable shift wasn't in performance. It was in people. Receptionists no longer flinched when they laughed too loud. Techs from the service bay actually joined finance associates in the break room. Sales staff, once anxious and competitive, started sharing leads when they noticed someone falling behind. Sam made it a priority to meet with every department, one at a time. Not in a sterile conference room with air conditioning cranked too high and agendas printed on clipboards. No. He showed up in their space. In the service bay, he rolled up his sleeves and asked questions while standing between lifts and tool carts. In the finance office, he pulled up a folding chair next to a cluttered desk and listened without checking his watch. With sales, he walked the floor not to observe but to understand. He didn't lecture. He listened. Sometimes he asked, "What frustrates you here?" Other times, just, "What would make your job easier?" And in doing so, he unlocked something the dealership had been missing for years: honest conversations. In the break room, the difference was palpable. The same scratched-up tables. The same faulty microwave. But now, there were jokes. There were ideas being tossed around without fear. There was laughter that didn't die the second a manager walked in. Even Renee, who was famously cynical, said it out loud over lunch, "It actually feels like a real team now." It wasn't perfect. Some days were still long. Customers still got impatient. Finance apps still crashed. And there were plenty of growing pains. But now when things went wrong, people spoke up because they knew they'd be heard, not humiliated. On a Friday afternoon, with the week winding down, Dean organized something new. Nothing formal. No memos. Just a message passed around by word of mouth. "We're grilling out back. Come if you're free." By 4:30 p.m., folding chairs were lined up near the back lot. A cheap portable grill was working overtime, sizzling burgers and hot dogs. Someone brought a speaker. Someone else brought homemade brownies. Sam stood quietly at the edge, watching the scene unfold. He hadn't planned to speak. He hadn't even planned to stay long. But someone nudged him, "Tyler, maybe," and said, "You should say something." So Sam stepped onto a small pallet stacked with parts boxes. No microphone. No podium. Just him. "All right," he said, raising his voice enough to carry but not shout. "Just a few words before the burgers disappear." Light laughter rolled through the crowd. He scanned the faces in front of him, some still unsure, some hopeful, a few visibly relieved. "I bought this dealership," Sam said, "not because I love cars, though I do, but because I believe places like this matter." He paused. "Not because of what we sell. But because of who we are." Heads turned. Eyes focused. Brighton doesn't run on engines or interest rates. It runs on people who show up early, stay late, solve problems, and make strangers feel like they belong. He took a breath. Let the wind carry it. That kind of experience doesn't come from scripts or spreadsheets. It comes from respect. The word landed heavy. But warm. And respect isn't just for customers. It's for each other. From the top to the floor. From sales to service. From management to maintenance. Tyler nodded. Renee, holding a soda can, murmured, "Say that again." Sam continued, his voice steady. "You don't need a title to have ideas. You don't need a fancy suit to have value. The uniform doesn't matter. What you drive doesn't matter. How many zeros are in your account? Doesn't matter." He looked out across the small crowd, his next words cutting through with clarity. "How you treat people. That's what matters." There was a quiet across the group, not tense, not awkward. Just real. Grounded. Dean stepped forward first, clapping once. Others followed. Not thunderous applause. Not rehearsed. Just steady. Sincere. As the staff returned to their burgers and conversations, Sam stepped down from the pallet. Renee approached, handing him a can of soda. "I gotta say," she said, grinning, "I didn't think I'd see this place turn around." Sam smiled back. "We're not there yet." He looked across the lot. Toward the service bay. The break room windows. The showroom entrance. But we're pointed in the right direction. A few feet away, Tyler approached, hesitant. "Mr. Waverly," he said, clearing his throat. "I just wanted to say thanks. Not just for, what happened. But for giving us a shot to be heard." Sam nodded. "It's Sam. And you don't have to thank me, for something you should have had all along." They shook hands. Later that evening, as the sun dipped low over the city skyline, Sam stood alone near the edge of the service bay. The mop bucket he once pushed sat quietly in the corner, still tucked in the exact spot he left it that first day. He looked at it for a long moment. Then turned. And walked away. Because respect isn't earned once. It's earned again and again. In the small choices. In the quiet corrections. And sometimes, the biggest lesson doesn't come from power. It comes from staying quiet long enough to hear what others never say out loud. Sometimes, the most powerful P.O. Raymond didn't raise his voice. He didn't retaliate. He listened. This wasn't just a lesson in leadership. It was a rem. It's about how we tray. So next time you walk past someone you assume is just a janitor, just a waitress, or just a stranger, ask yourself, what if they are? Thank you for watching. Drop a comment, have you ever been? Because here on Colorline Stories we don't just tell stories. We reveal truths that change how we see the world.